Hello. So I was going to give a talk about display shields and Blockly. So display shields are a piece of hardware that I'm going to talk a bit about, and they enable you to create educational applications in a unique way. So I'm Keir. I'm a PhD student at Lancaster University, and I'm primarily interested in how we can use unique hardware, normally relatively cheap hardware, so just small displays, sensors, and actuators, along with the microbits to create interesting applications. And I'm part of MERL, which is this new lab that's interested in how we can kind of extend the microbit. So this microbit has been very successful around the world. It's reached over 60 to 70 million children, but we'd like to see how we can bring it even further. And one of the ways that I'm interested in researching that is in how we can use it with unique pieces of hardware. So this is what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk a bit about the hardware today, and then how we can use it, types of applications you can make yourself, more complicated applications, simpler ones that you can get started with. One of those is an example of a microbit app, which is an educational application we're going to talk about, and then how you can make your own ones. So this is the microbit. I think you're probably familiar with how it works, but there's a bit of an overview. It's a very small embedded device that's really popular around the world. And it has lots of sensors and actuators on it, and it has radio capability so you can talk to different devices. Also quite important, at the bottom here are these pins, so you can use these pins, you can touch them, they work as touch sensors, they can also be input and output devices, so you can connect them to other sensors. So one of the things you can connect it to are these things called display shields. So these are little game controller looking devices. You can see the microbit plugs into the top here, and they're made by a variety of different companies. And the main thing here is that they allow you to do kind of portable development on the microbit. So you can write your own applications, and they can run on here, and then it's entirely portable. So this will enable you to create applications which you then don't need internet connectivity, and they can run on their own. This is another example of how you can extend the microbit to have sensors and actuators. This is quite nice. If you need a really specific type of sensor, for example, you can use this, and I'll give a bit of a demo about that later. But what can you build with it? So originally, these devices were designed for MakeCode Arcade, so they were really designed around making games. That's why it kind of has this game controller form factor. And I can show you that, actually. So the way this might work is if you go to MakeCode Arcade, for example, you go and you can select the game, and then it will give you this kind of tutorial about how you can make the game with progressive disclosure. So it's a tutorial on this right-hand side. Then you can say you can go into this toolbox, for example, the scene category, and then you can drag that in here. And you can imagine you can use this to create your games and share them, and they run on a variety of different pieces of hardware. So this is kind of where it started with display shields. But the thing that we were interested in was how you could kind of use this for not just making games, but if you could run educational applications. So the microbit is really interesting because of all these sensors, but what if you could use these sensors, for example, to collect data and use it in a physics experiment, or if you could use it in a chemistry experiment, or you could learn maths or programming using it. And so that's where we got the idea of microbit apps. So these are educational applications that run on the microbit. And I have two examples here. So one is called microcode, and the other is microdata. So microcode is this application which runs on the display shield to teach programming in a visual way. So it's kind of similar to Blockly, but you kind of do tile-based development based on these when-do rules. And microdata is another application which runs on the display shield to collect data for physics experiments. This is an example of two students using microdata in a school. And this was really powerful because it kind of brought us away from not just for making games, but for making more complicated applications. But the kind of downside is they're written mainly in TypeScript, and they don't actually use blocks. That's kind of a bit of a sin maybe at Blockly. But what we'd like to do in the future, this is kind of where we started with these games at Arcade, then we expanded beyond games, but what we'd like to do is to empower learners to create their own applications that use blocks as well. So you kind of saw at the start with MakeCode Arcade, you normally use blocks, but you can't really do that for more general applications outside of games. That's kind of what we were looking at here. And I can give you a bit of a demo of how you might do that here. If I to MakeCode, scroll up. It's just loading. Oh, there we go. can load up MakeCode, and it will start a simulator on the left-hand side. So this is actually really important for making these applications, as you don't always want to flash onto the device itself. So it's really important to have this integrated simulator support, and that's something that's we're really grateful that MakeCode has. And it has simulator support for not just the microbit, but also for the display itself. And then you could use these different toolboxes, such as for drawing things. So maybe you want to fill the screen with the color blue, for example, and on here. And then you might want to have, you can see the simulator updates for blue. Then you might want to have some activity, which you're quite familiar with how Blockly works. And then you might want to have something like a bitmap, for example, so you can create art like this. You have this bitmap, and then this little MS Paint style pop up. And you can see my not very good art school skills if I draw a little smiley face like this. And maybe we want to put that on the screen as well. So if you do a draw bitmap, for example. And when you press A on this device, you see a little smiley face in the top left corner. Maybe it's a little hard to see. So in general, that's kind of what we want to do. We kind of want to go ahead and empower learners to create their own sorts of applications that are beyond games, with look to educational ones. Thank you.
Thank you.